The television studio was freezing. November 8th, 1963. Paris. A live broadcast of Cinq Colonnes à la Une, France's most watched news program. Brigitte Bardot sat under harsh lights, microphone clipped to her collar, being interviewed about her recent retirement announcement. Standard questions. Standard answers. She was exhausted but performing through it, the way she always did. Then the host leaned forward, with a smile that made Brigitte's stomach drop. Before we close, I have to ask about the recent revelations in Paris Match. Your friend Christine Gouze-Raynal gave quite an illuminating interview about your private life. Did you know she was going to speak publicly about such intimate details? Brigitte's face went blank. I'm sorry, what? The host's smile widened, sensing a moment. The interview published yesterday, about your suicide attempts, your eating disorder, your relationships, quite comprehensive. She said she felt the public deserved to know the real Brigitte Bardot. The world tilted, because Christine was the only person Brigitte had trusted with those secrets, the only friend who'd held her while she cried, who'd talked her down from ledges, literal and metaphorical, who'd promised repeatedly that everything shared between them was sacred, and she'd sold it, all of it, to a tabloid. I didn't know about that interview, Brigitte managed to say, her voice sounding distant and strange to her own ears. So you didn't authorize it? No. The host leaned in further, smelling blood. How do you feel, knowing your closest friend shared such private information? Brigitte looked directly into the camera. 10 million people watching, waiting for her reaction, feeding on her pain. She felt her face do something it hadn't done in years. She couldn't control it, couldn't hide. Excuse me, she whispered, standing abruptly. I can't. The microphone cord yanked as she moved. She fumbled to unclip it, her hands shaking violently. Miss Bardot, we're still live. But she was already walking off set, leaving the host stammering, leaving 10 million viewers watching her back as she fled, leaving her professional composure shattered on national television. Because there are some betrayals you can't perform through. And this was one of them. Christine Gouze-Raynal had been Brigitte's friend for 7 years. They'd met in 1956 on the set of In God Created Woman. Christine was a production assistant, young, ambitious, warm. She'd brought Brigitte coffee during a breakdown and stayed to listen when Brigitte needed to talk. Unlike everyone else in Brigitte's orbit, Christine seemed to want nothing, no favors, no access, no reflected glory, just friendship. For someone as famous and isolated as Brigitte, that was intoxicating. Slowly, carefully, Brigitte had let her in, shared pieces of truth she'd never told anyone. Christine became the person she called at 3 a.m. when the insomnia was unbearable, the person who knew about the pills in her bedside drawer, the person who'd seen her at her absolute worst and stayed anyway. Or so Brigitte thought. What she didn't know, Christine had been taking notes, documenting everything, building a file of secrets that would eventually be worth a fortune. The betrayal had been planned for months. In August 1963, Paris Match approached Christine with an offer of $50,000 for an exclusive tell-all interview about Brigitte Bardot, the real story, the secrets behind the image. $50,000. More money than Christine made in 3 years. She didn't hesitate. Didn't call Brigitte to ask permission. Didn't consider the damage it would cause. She sat down with a journalist and spent 8 hours revealing everything. Brigitte's suicide attempts, dates, methods, hospital stays that had been covered up, her eating disorder, the extent of the starvation, the hospitalizations, the ongoing struggle, her romantic relationships, intimate details, private confessions, things shared in moments of vulnerability, her mental health, the dissociative episodes, the panic attacks, the times she'd been so broken she couldn't function. Every secret, Every confession, every moment of trust, sold for cash. The interview was published on November 7, 1963, a 12-page spread with the headline, "The Truth About Brigitte Bardot, Her Best Friend Speaks." Christine's photo was prominently featured, smiling, proud, positioned as the brave truth-teller exposing the lies of fame. Brigitte was positioned as the tragic figure, the damaged star, the woman whose carefully constructed image was finally being revealed as fiction. Brigitte found out about the article the way she found out about most things in her life, through public humiliation. The television interview was her first public appearance since announcing her retirement. She'd been nervous but prepared to discuss her career, her future, her plans. She had not been prepared to discover, on live television, that her best friend had betrayed her for money. The walk-off set was captured by every camera in the studio. Brigitte's face, usually so controlled, so perfect, was raw with shock and pain. The footage played on every news program in France that night, and across Europe the next day, and eventually around the world. The betrayal was bad enough. Having it exposed publicly, having her reaction documented and broadcast, made it exponentially worse. Brigitte went straight from the television studio to her Paris apartment and locked herself inside. She didn't answer the phone, didn't respond to the frantic knocking from her assistant, didn't emerge for 3 days. During those 3 days, she read the Paris Match article. Every word, every intimate detail of her life spread across glossy pages for public consumption. Christine had revealed things Brigitte had shared while crying in her arms. Confessions made at 4 a.m. when she was too broken to maintain her defenses. Private moments that were supposed to be sacred. The article included a quote from Christine that would haunt Brigitte forever. Brigitte always said, "I was like a sister to her, but I realized the public deserved to know the truth about her. She's been lying to them for years, and I felt it was my duty to expose that. She'll be angry at first, but eventually she'll understand I did this for her own good." For her own good. As if betrayal could be reframed as care. The phone started ringing at 6 a.m. on the 4th day. Brigitte finally answered, assuming it was her assistant. It was Christine. "Brigitte, please. Let me explain." Brigitte's voice was ice. "Explain what? How you sold me for $50,000? Or how you convinced yourself you did it for my own good? You don't understand. You were going to run the story anyway, with or without me. At least this way I could control the narrative." Control the narrative? Brigitte laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. "You revealed my suicide attempts, my eating disorder, things I told you when I was breaking apart. And you're telling me you did it to control the narrative? Brigitte, I needed the money, and you have so much, you don't understand what it's like to." Brigitte hung up. She never spoke to Christine again. The fallout was immediate and devastating. The Paris Match article became the most read issue in the magazine's history. It sold out within hours. They printed 3 additional runs to meet demand. Other publications scrambled for follow-ups. Interviews with anyone who'd ever known Brigitte, ex-boyfriends, former co-workers, distant relatives. Everyone suddenly had a story to sell. Christine gave more interviews, capitalizing on her newfound fame as Brigitte's former best friend. She appeared on television programs, wrote a follow-up article, negotiated a book deal. She built a career on Brigitte's private pain. Meanwhile, Brigitte retreated further from the world. The betrayal had confirmed her worst fear, that trust was impossible, that everyone in her life saw her as a resource to exploit. If Christine, the one person she'd believed was genuine, could sell her secrets, then no one was safe. The psychological damage was profound. Brigitte had always struggled with trust. Fame had made genuine connection nearly impossible. But she'd believed Christine was different, that their friendship was real. Learning it wasn't, learning that even her most intimate relationships were transactional, shattered something fundamental in Brigitte's ability to connect with people. A therapist she saw briefly in 1964 documented the impact. Patient exhibits severe trust issues stemming from recent betrayal. Describes feeling fundamentally stupid for believing anyone could care about her without ulterior motive. States she will never be that vulnerable again. Prognosis for future healthy relationships. Poor. Christine's betrayal didn't just end a friendship. It ended Brigitte's capacity to believe in friendship. The cruelest aspect was how the public responded. Instead of condemning Christine for selling out her friend, many people praised her for exposing the truth. Articles defended her decision. The public has a right to know. Brigitte Bardot is a public figure. If she didn't want her secrets revealed, she shouldn't have shared them. Victim blaming disguised as media ethics. A particularly vicious editorial argued Bardot has built her career on deception, presenting an image that doesn't match reality. Gauze Renault did us all a service by revealing the truth. If Bardot is upset, perhaps she should have been more honest from the start. This logic was insane. Brigitte was upset because private medical information was published without consent, because intimate confessions were sold for profit, because her friend betrayed her trust for money. But the narrative became Brigitte was angry at being exposed, not at being betrayed. Christine never apologized. In a 1965 interview, she defended her decision. I don't regret it. Brigitte was living a lie, and someone needed to tell the truth. Yes, I profited from it. Why shouldn't I? I'd spent years supporting her through crises. I earned that money. The entitlement was staggering. She'd reframed years of friendship as labor-deserving compensation, as if caring about someone created a debt that could be paid through betrayal. Brigitte's response, relayed through her lawyer, Miss Gauze Renault, has revealed more about her own character than she ever revealed about mine. I wish her well, from a distance, forever. Polite, cutting, final. The betrayal changed how Brigitte related to people for the rest of her life. She stopped confiding in anyone, stopped sharing vulnerabilities, stopped letting people close enough to hurt her. Friends from the 1970s and beyond described her as warm but walled off, someone you could spend hours with and still feel like you'd never really met her. She was lovely, but there was this invisible barrier, one acquaintance recalled. Like she was always evaluating whether you were going to sell her out. You could feel her calculating risk with every word she said. It was sad, watching someone live that way. Christine had turned Brigitte's natural caution into permanent isolation. The financial aspect made it worse. $50,000. That's what their friendship had been worth to Christine. Brigitte, who was wealthy, tried to contextualize it. $50,000 was significant, yes, but not life-changing, not worth destroying someone over. She sold me for the price of a car, Brigitte said years later. That's what hurt most. Not that she did it, but how little I was worth to her. If she'd needed the money desperately, if it was life or death, maybe I could understand, but she didn't. She just wanted it. And that was enough. Friendship traded for a down payment on a house. Trust sold for luxury. The most devastating revelation came years later. In 1978, a journalist doing a retrospective on the scandal discovered that Christine had been planning the betrayal for over a year before the article was published. She'd been introduced to Brigitte through a mutual acquaintance who worked at Paris Match. The friendship hadn't been organic. It had been strategic. Christine had cultivated the relationship deliberately, knowing Brigitte was isolated and desperate for genuine connection. She'd positioned herself as the safe friend, the one who wanted nothing, all while documenting everything for eventual sale. When this information became public, even Christine's defenders had to acknowledge this wasn't a friend who made a mistake. This was a long-term infiltration designed to extract valuable information. Brigitte's response, when informed, I know, I figured it out years ago. It doesn't make it hurt less, but at least it makes sense. She never cared. It was always a transaction. I was just too lonely to see it. The Christine betrayal became Brigitte's reference point for all future relationships. Every new person in her life was measured against that experience. Every confidence shared came with the question, will they sell this? It made genuine connection impossible, because you can't build intimacy when you're always waiting for betrayal. A biographer who spent time with Brigitte in the 1990s observed, she'd tell you things, personal things, but always with this detachment, like she was giving you information she'd already accepted would be made public. Eventually, there was no vulnerability in it because she'd armored herself against ever being vulnerable again. Christine had taught her that vulnerability was dangerous, and Brigitte had learned the lesson too well. In 2000, Christine gave a final interview about the incident. Now in her 60s, she'd built a modest career as a celebrity journalist. The Brigitte betrayal had been her launching point, proof she was willing to get the real story no matter the cost. The interviewer asked if she regretted it. Christine's response, regret what? I told the truth. Brigitte was lying to the public, and I exposed it. If she'd been honest from the start, there would have been nothing to reveal. The betrayal, if there was one, was hers, lying to people who loved her. I just corrected the record. After 37 years, she still believed she'd done the right thing. Brigitte never publicly responded to that interview, but privately, to a close associate, she said, Christine will die believing she was the hero of that story, that she did me a favor. That's the truly sad part. She genuinely doesn't understand what she destroyed. She didn't just betray me. She proved that even the safest relationships are transactions, that everyone has a price, that trusting anyone is fundamentally foolish. $50,000. That's what it cost to teach me never to trust anyone again. Expensive lesson, but apparently I needed to learn it. The ultimate tragedy. Christine's betrayal became a self-fulfilling prophecy. By selling Brigitte's secrets, she'd confirmed Brigitte's worst fear about people, and in doing so, she'd made it impossible for Brigitte to ever be proven wrong. Because after Christine, Brigitte never let anyone close enough to betray her again. She protected herself by refusing intimacy, by keeping everyone at arm's length, by never sharing anything that could be weaponized. She was safe and utterly alone. Friends would ask why she never dated, never formed close relationships, never let anyone really know her. The answer was always the same. I learned my lesson. In her final years, Brigitte lived surrounded by animals and a small circle of paid staff. Not friends, not confidants. People who had employment contracts and non-disclosure agreements. When asked if she ever regretted cutting herself off from people so completely, she said, people ask if I'm lonely. And I am. But I'm lonelier with people than without them. Because with people, I'm always waiting for the betrayal. Always calculating when they'll sell me out. Always wondering what my secrets are worth this time. With animals, there's no calculation. They're loyal because they're loyal, not because it benefits them. They won't write a book about me. They won't sell my story. Christine taught me that human connection isn't worth the risk, and nothing that's happened since has proven her wrong. Brigitte Bardot's closest friend sold her secrets for $50,000. She found out on live television, in front of 10 million people. And the betrayal didn't just destroy a friendship. It destroyed Brigitte's belief that trust was possible. Christine got her money, got her career, got her vindication through self-deception. Brigitte got a lesson that everyone has a price, and eventually, they'll all collect. The footage of Brigitte walking off that television set, face crumbling, composure shattered, raw pain exposed for public consumption, became iconic. Not because of what it showed about fame, but because it captured the exact moment someone's faith in humanity died. You can see it in her eyes. The realization, the understanding that she'd been played, that the one person she trusted had been documenting her pain for profit. 10 million people watched her heart break in real time. Christine made $50,000 and spent the rest of her life justifying it. Brigitte spent the rest of her life never trusting anyone again. In the end, they both lost, but only one of them knew it.